If I were to pick one quote that perfectly describes my personality, it would be from the hit song Oh No by Marina and the Diamonds, when she says, "I feel like I'm the worst, so I always act like I'm the best." Because I know my personality can be a bit smug. And that's because I'm just objectively better than everyone. No, I'm not. I'm a YouTuber. It's because I think it's funny. But I think it originated from the fact that for most of my life, I've been very insecure, and acting like I'm the best ever was a way to cope with that. And the two main things I was insecure about were my looks and my intelligence. Or a more accurate word for it would be my stupidity. I think I've gotten more confident over the years, but for a long time, I hated the way I looked, especially in pictures. I would avoid getting my photo taken everywhere I could. If I was hanging out with my friends and they wanted a group picture, I would always volunteer to be the one taking the photo because that meant I didn't have to be in it. And if a group photo with me was taken and it was sent to my phone, and hence I had a copy of the picture in my gallery, I would go to my editing app and scribble over my face, save it as a copy, and then delete the original. So the only version I had was the one with my face covered, and I had no way of getting the original. And now looking back on this, I realized how stupid that was. Not only do I have a bunch of perfectly good group photos ruined because I've scribbled my face out, but I'm also not present in most of the pictures with my friends who I've grown apart from, which makes me feel like I wasn't present in those memories, which is a bit dumb because of course I was. And obviously I have some pictures from myself at the time, and yeah, I wasn't gorgeous, more so slightly below average, but I definitely wasn't the monstrosity that I had made up in my head. Also, another stupid thing I did when I hated the way I looked was when I moved schools during COVID, when masks were still required. For the first few weeks at my new school, I didn't eat during lunch because I was afraid of taking my mask off and my new classmates and friends seeing how ugly I really was. So, yikes for that. But I think my insecurities in middle school stemmed from me being overly critical of myself, but also how I was treated back then. I'm not going to give you some bullying sob story because I'm sure you've heard plenty of those because most people probably have been made fun of for their looks, and my bullying sob story is pretty much the same as the rest of them. But as an example, I was the one that people would make jokes about dating. Like, we had this ball thing at the end of 7th grade, kind of like prom, but everyone in the whole grade had to be partnered up to do a slow dance that was shown to our parents. And the partner had to be of the opposite sex. So obviously for 7th graders, it was a big deal getting asked to the ball and who was gonna be whose partner. Ooh. And a couple times I overheard people saying, "Ha ha 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 ha, imagine if you ended up being Sarah's partner, ha 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 ha." Can't say that was great for my self-esteem. I also barely ever got compliments about my appearance, and I once saw a TikTok that was like, "Signs you are actually pretty," and one of them was that you don't get complimented on your appearance. But you also don't get that if you're ugly, so what's the point? Also, speaking of compliments, I used to not believe people the few times I did get complimented. I wasn't annoying about it. If someone gave me a compliment, I said thanks and returned it. But in my head, I was thinking that they didn't mean it, or they were just saying that to be nice, or worst, they were mocking me. Luckily, I don't think that too much anymore, and I think it's because I genuinely like the way I look now. I know I'm not gorgeous or anything, but I'm happy. And because I feel pretty, when someone compliments me, for example by saying they liked my outfit, I would believe them because I myself liked my outfit and knew it was nice before the external validation. And if they were just saying that to mock me, then screw them. I have a sick-ass outfit. I think another factor that led me to be so insecure about my looks was my fear of coming off as annoying. I rarely opened up about my insecurities because I didn't want to come off as, well, insecure, nor did I want to be seen as someone who was fishing for compliments. And since elementary school, I had this weird mentality that I should never tell people about my insecurities because I was scared that people would then pay attention to them, even if they hadn't noticed them before. For example, I've never liked the way my nose looked, but I've never told anyone that because I was scared that they would then take a closer look and realize that it looks like someone punched me in the face, but my nose just stayed that shape forever. But I feel like if in my early teenage years I had expressed that insecurity to my friends who cared about me, they would have probably responded with, "No, your nose is nice," or "No, I like your nose." And yeah, they may have said that just out of politeness, but even so, I feel that sentiment would have made me a bit less insecure. But who knows? Ha ha. I'm sorry. But luckily now I do like my appearance, and I am way more secure with it than I was in middle school. Probably because I look nothing like I did in middle school. Thank God. But if you're a middle schooler and you hate the way you look, it gets better, I promise. You'll get a better fashion sense and learn how to style your hair. And if I could tell my middle school self something, I'd say to not be afraid of being in pictures, because you're not as ugly as you think, but more importantly, having pictures of you enjoying life with friends, and then being able to look back on those is a lot more important than you being scared that your smile is ugly. Also, don't scribble over your face and ruin perfectly good photos. It looks ugly. I promise you, the scribble is 100 times worse than your stupid face. Moving on to the next topic of insecurity, which was me being an idiot. In middle school, my friends were the smartest in the class. If you're familiar with the Finnish grading system, they all got 10s and considered anything below like a 9.5 bad. For my American audience, I found this conversion table. So they considered anything below a 94% bad. So they were all top of the class, and I was just all right. I sometimes got 10s, but I was mostly in the 9 to 8 range, occasionally a 7. And obviously that's not horrible, and your grades don't equate to how smart you are. But in middle school, I thought that was the case. So I quickly labeled myself as the dumb one of the friend group. And when you give yourself a certain label, you also begin to act that way. I didn't purposely get bad grades or anything, but sometimes I would exaggerate my stupidity for the sake of comedy, in quotes, because none of it was funny. But I think it was the mentality that if I make fun of myself for being stupid, they can't make fun of me. Not that they ever did, but as an example of me exaggerating to fit the label and trying to be funny, one time we got our report cards back, and my final grades have always been an 8 or above. Except this one time when I got a 7 from Swedish, because I suck at learning languages. But we got our report cards back in person, so my friends were talking to each other about grades and stuff. And for some reason, during this grades discussion, I super excitedly said, "Oh my gosh, guys, I only got 1 7 this time." As if getting 7s as my final grade was a common occurrence for me. It happened once. This time. But no, that's a hilarious thing to say. I'm dying from laughter. They just kind of laughed. Probably out of pity. But because I gave myself the label of the stupid one, and then at times exaggerated it to be funny, I started to fully believe that I was in fact an idiot. And so that became something I was insecure and self-conscious about. And because that was how I branded myself, my friends also started to view me as a bit dumb. One of my closest friends at the time told me that I wasn't allowed to be in her group projects because then she wouldn't get a good grade. So I just ended up doing group projects alone most of the time. That wasn't sad at all. But before you're like, "Oh my god, she's a terrible friend." No, she's not. I get her mentality. I don't know how many of you are aware of how the Finnish education system works, but the grades you get in 9th grade are super important because you use those grades to apply to high schools. And my friends all wanted to get into very prestigious high schools, so they needed to get good grades. And obviously getting into a good high school is way more important than being in a group project with your friend. And so I do think her reasoning for not wanting me in her group projects is valid, and I also thought that at the time. But just because I understood her reasoning and knew it was the logical thing to do, doesn't mean it didn't hurt my feelings and just further make me more self-conscious about my intelligence, because my best friend was essentially saying that I wasn't smart enough for her. And I know that was partially my fault because I branded myself as the idiot, but I mean, she wouldn't have been happy with my actual grades either, so. Now, I don't see my middle school friends that often anymore, but we meet up maybe twice a year. And I want you to understand the academic comeback I had in high school. I moved countries and I decided that was a restart and I wasn't going to be the stupid one anymore. And not to flex or anything, but I had a 4.0 GPA every semester of high school. And don't come at me with the, oh, you went to an American high school, so it was probably easier because that's the stereotype. No. Yes, I went to an American high school, but I did the IB program, which is global, so it's the same everywhere. And it's known to be stupidly difficult. So my academic comeback was not because I went to an easier school, but because I worked hard. But what I'm trying to say with flexing my school grades, which I'm sure you all care about, is that I went from being the dumb one of the group to one of the smarter ones of my high school friends. And because I got the label of being one of the smarter ones, I also wanted to live up to that label, just like I lived up to the label of being the stupid one. I started getting good grades, I got accepted into National Honor Society, and I won certificates at the end of the school year. Things my middle school self would never believe that I could do. And I'm not trying to turn this into some sappy motivational speech, but I truly believe that how you view yourself and the labels you give yourself do impact the way you act and your success. And even though I love being a hater, if you have a negative view about yourself, that will also translate to how you behave. So even though negativity is fun, be positive and confident about yourself, which is obviously easier said than done. I'm very aware. But what I find interesting is that the couple times I do see my middle school friends, even now, I still feel like I fall into the box of the stupid one. And I feel like I should be constantly proving myself to them that I'm in fact not stupid. And I know it's irrational because I highly doubt that they think I'm dumb. But if you feel this way, I don't actually have a solution. I still feel like I have to prove myself, and the feeling is not going away. So if you know how I can fix this, please tell me. But to end this video with some reflections, I guess, to all the insecure people watching this, as someone who used to be very insecure, I know it can be difficult to be confident in yourself if you genuinely hate yourself and truly believe that you're ugly and stupid. But life is brighter when you are confident. And I know confidence is a difficult thing to achieve, and how one gains confidence is different for everyone. But for me, it was with time and growth. I like the way I look because I learned how to style my hair, but to achieve that I had to go through a bunch of bad haircuts. And probably in the future I'll consider the haircut I have now bad. But whatever, I like it now. Same with outfits. And I know I'm not stupid because of the things I've achieved. And I can look back on those whenever I feel dumb to remind myself that I'm not, because an idiot would not be able to achieve those things. But in terms of confidence, I really don't know what advice I would even give to my middle school self. Because I know for a middle schooler it can be difficult to experiment with outfits or have major achievements to look back on. And with puberty and bullying, it can be difficult to be confident. So if you're in middle school, I don't know. I genuinely don't know. Good luck to you. It gets better. This is where I'm supposed to tell people to subscribe, but I don't know if that really fits the tone. I don't know. Everyone who is subbed to me is automatically beautiful, and that's a fact, because you were already beautiful to begin with.